Hey guys, welcome back. So in the last video we picked up some thornless raspberries and some blueberry bush. We do have one blueberry that's still doing really well that we have potted. We're going to take that out and it's going to find a new home in these two brand new beds we're going to be putting right here. They're going to be 2 foot by 8 foot by 15 inch, so about half the size of the garden beds we have out here already. They are just going to be solely for berries. We have right now 4 berry bushes, and we're going to head out to Stein's and we're going to pick up our material to build the beds. Once we get the beds built, we'll put all of our raspberries, blueberries, and blackberries all in it, and hopefully have a small crop this year, but it's more of a long-term goal here. Once these start to really mature, we're going to be picking them for years. But we have to get it established, and this is the year we're going to establish it. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we're going to get started. A lot of the wood we're using is stuff that's left over from last year, but we need a couple more 2x4s and the rest of the materials, so off to Home Depot we go. Now, we've talked before about making sure everything is level prior to working to make sure that all of your cuts are straight. Now, in this situation, the actual miter saw was not level at the base, so I have a piece of plywood down, and that's actually leveling it out completely. And from there, we make sure that our blade is level. And this has got a magnetic strip to it, so we just put it on the blade. Look, the blade is not level. Loosen it up. Blade is now level, and so is our surface for cutting. Now, I've got all my calculations. I'll leave this in the corner of the screen while I do a lot of the work, especially when I start getting into the different sections and the measurements. Now, we've got 3 actual cut sizes that we're going to need. We're going to need 6.5 inch, 24 inches, and 28 inches. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the biggest with the scrap wood to make sure we get that in, and that's going to be the first one of 28 inches. Now this one's a little bit shorter, but where we got to cut 24 6.5 inch boards. This is just over 16 inches, so we'll be able to get 2 cuts of our 6.5 inch boards out of this. So we're going to hold on to the piece of wood. Now we're going to need 4 24 inch cuts. It turns out I actually needed 8 boards, and I didn't realize that until I started assembling the beds and realized I was 4 short. Now this was an 8 foot board, 96 inches, but because I made all the cuts, I don't get 4 out of that. That's always something to keep in mind when you start making those cuts. I am about 15/16 difference from all the cuts with the saw blade. So I can't use this, but this will be used for my 6.5 inch, and that is why I do that one last, because all the scrap wood I can use to make sure I'm utilizing all the wood I can. We're moving on to our last cuts. These are at 6.5 inches. Now, this would take a long time if we tried to measure out every single one of these boards at 6.5 inches and then make our cuts. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a shortcut. First off, we're going to measure out our first board and make sure it's ready to cut. Now we're going to take a small piece of scrap 2x4 and place it at the end. Then we're going to line up our board to make our first cut at 6.5 inches, and the end of that board will now be 6.5 inches. Now that we have everything set up, we're going to clamp and affix the scrap 2x4 to the miter saw. Now this creates a template to make all of your cuts at 6.5 inches and should speed everything up. Now we're going to be putting pocket holes in each one of our 6.5 inch boards, and only those boards. What we're going to be using is a Kreg pocket hole jig. Now you clamp on the pocket hole jig to the board itself and drill 2 pocket holes into the end. And you're going to do this on both sides of the board. These 6.5 inch cuts are the vertical pieces that will be affixing the top and the bottom 2x4s together, creating our frame of our garden beds. Now you can use 3-inch screws or you can use 2.5-inch screws to secure the frame together. I'm using 2.5, and you can see here how far it actually goes in. I think this is more than enough. Now we're going to assemble the smaller portions of the frame of the garden bed. We're going to line up and affix our smaller 6.5 inch boards to our 2-foot boards. Now our beds are going to be 8 foot, so we have 96-inch 2x4s here. We're going to build a template to make our measurements even, and with that we're going to affix the 2x4s to the end using a standard 2x4 at 3.5 inches. So we're going to subtract 7 inches from 96, giving 89 inches of space in between the 2 ends. From there we're going to add 2 more 2x4s, creating 3 separate sections. So that's another 7 inches off, giving us 82 inches of space between all the 2x4s. With 3 sections, we're going to divide 82 by 3, and we're going to get 27.3 inches. The closest rounding is 5/16, so we're going to have 27.3125, or our template's going to be 27 5/16 inches. So I have these all measured out and marked, so I know roughly where it should go. So we'll see if my measurement works and it fits in perfectly and it's lined up. So let's get everything affixed and get it all done and put together. All of my measurements are based on everything being 8-foot beds. You might want something a little bit different or obscure, like a 5 or 6 foot bed. So what I'll do is I'll leave my equation in the description in an algebraic form, so you can plug your numbers in and be able to get a similar result with your exact measurements. Five and a half, half of 25.5 is be 12 3/4, which is right in the center of this. So we have a nice groove right here. And what we'll do, just to make sure we get a line, because we're going to be cutting, we don't want to guess. Put this in here, in the center. Right down the line. So before I fix it, I want the curve here at the top, because I want to be able to affix something straight down. And then I'm going to go every other and affix it, because that's going to be 1, 2, 3. So 3 screws are going to go in each area. Now to make sure I'm lined up here, I'm going to put a line here so I know where that joist is, so then I'm going to sink it in every other and copy it all the way down. So what I have is a metal screw that actually is meant to secure metal to wood. So it's going to be zinc coated and to ensure it's not going to rust through. Now we're going to start the assembly process, and my suggestion is using 2 different drills. One is going to be equipped with the drill bit for pilot holes, while the other one is equipped with the correct drill bit used to put in your deck screws seamlessly without having to take out each one of the bits and putting in a new one. About 20 inches. 20 inches. Alright, so we're going to space this out with 7 screws that they're going to go roughly every 16 inches or so. So they're going to be measured in a 3/4 of an inch in every 16 inches. So there's our first one, 16, and this is just an estimate. Once we have our 8-foot toppers on, we're going to use our pocket hole jig in the space that we have of the lip to put a little hole in there, and then we're going to use that to affix these smaller ends together to pull everything in tight. feet, 14 inch. We want to add a bracer in the center, and this is what I like to use as a wiring system similar to like a gate. And for that you're going to need an eyebolt. This is going to be a 4-inch by 1/4 inch. You're going to need 2 of those, a turnbuckle, 4 1/8 inch wire rope clips, 2 1/8 inch wire rope thimbles, a multi-purpose wire of some sort. I like it when it's wrapped in vinyl. Then you're going to need a 1/4 inch fender washers. I like the 1 inch to 1.5 inch, a 1/4 inch drill bit, and you're going to thread the thimble through the turnbuckle. thing you're going to do is find center, and then you're going to use your 1/4-inch drill bit and drill a hole. Now you're going to use the eyebolt and you're going to screw it in with a washer between the eyebolt and the wood. Because everything here is a 1/4 inch, it's going to fit very snugly, so you're going to want to twist it on. I use a screwdriver to help with this process. On the other side, you're going to have another fender washer and then the nut to screw it all in and fix it together. And mimic that process on the other side. Then you're going to need to thread the thimble through the eyebolt. You might need to stretch this out to make it fit and then bend it right back using needle nose pliers. Alright, now you're going to have all of the wire clips on the wiring. You're going to thread the wire through the turnbuckle and take 2 of those wire clips and tighten them down over the top of the wire to hold it in place. Alright, for the other side, you're going to put your turnbuckle on your eyebolt. You're going to thread your wiring through the thimble. You're going to tighten it down and then add your rope clips and tighten the wiring down. Once everything's tight, start turning the turnbuckle to tighten everything up to keep it taut. There is a slight gap in the corners of the metal on the inside, so we're going to be using aluminum tape to fill in those gaps. Are you eating that? Just like the other garden beds, we're going to be using a Hugelkultur method for this, but we are not going to be using the large logs that we were using in the larger beds, but we will be using sticks and twigs that I'm gathering throughout the yard. And that will make up our base. On top of that, we are going to be using our sod compost, the stuff that didn't work nearly as well from the back. We talked about that in the previous video. I'll leave a link for that above. And then on top of that, we'll be using the rest of our good sod compost, and then finally topping it all off with our compost, our Purple Cow compost that we picked up at Stony Island. Alright, now we're going to get the berries in based on their size. Our blueberries are the shortest, with getting only to be about 1.5 to 2 feet tall. That's going to be our smallest one. We're going to be working on our second one in a minute. And then we're going to split it in the center with our raspberries. These raspberries get to be about 2 to 3 feet tall. And our biggest are our blackberries at 3 to 5. And those are going to go all the way back here at the end. That way it doesn't shadow out the others. Now, unfortunately, I can't get this out of the pot. The pot's seen better days. There's a crack in it, so we're going to get rid of the pot. All right, guys, so that's it. It's actually starting to come down pretty good now. So we're gonna wrap this up. We got everything in. It's all planted in a cascade. So the taller stuff is in the back. The shorter stuff is up in the front. Now that blueberry bush that is in the middle is a couple years old. So it is gonna start to fill out and probably produce berries here very shortly. That one will probably end up netting. And the blackberries here will probably end up trellising. But we do have netting for everything once they start to establish, but that's not gonna be this year. So we'll just care for these and get these situated for the long haul. Now, the build was a lot of fun. I'll leave a description for all the materials I use in the description below. I'll leave any sort of links to anything that I picked up that might be unusual or all the stuff that I use. If you have any questions, leave it in the comment section. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Or if you have any other questions, you can also reach us on Facebook or Instagram. But that is going to be it. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got them in and they look great. So next week, we'll be starting our trellises for the rest of the garden beds, and we got a lot more to come. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.